Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to FAO's World Bee Day event for 2022, with the theme Be Engaged, celebrating the diversity of bees and beekeeping systems. I'm Kimon Tempelman, the moderator of today's event, and it's my pleasure to accompany you through the next hour and a half. Before we get started, let me remind you that today's event is being recorded and that the recordings will be made available after the event on the FAO website. Interpretation is available in Arabic, Chinese, English, French, Russian, and Spanish. Should you be joining us via Zoom, you can select your preferred language in the bottom bar on your screen. If you're following by webcast, you can select the language of your choice in the drop-down menu right below the video. If you are on Zoom and have questions for any of our technical speakers during the event, please write them in the Q&A box. We will try to address as many questions as possible ahead of and during the question and answer session at the end of the presentations. If possible, when posing your question, please specify to whom it is addressed. For those who are active on social media, we would love to hear your voice, so please join the conversation using the hashtag WorldBeeDay or Save the Bees. Today's event will start with a high-level opening segment, followed by a short video from UNESCO. 4 presentations will then be held, during which we will be listening to passionate beekeeping stories from the field. During the discussion session, participants will be given the opportunity to interact more closely with the presenters. Finally, a few closing remarks will conclude today's event. And there's also something new this year. After the event, you will have the opportunity to meet our technical speakers again for an informal chat in the Hive. But more about this at the end of our event. If you're ready to be engaged, let's start with a welcoming message from the FAO Director General, Xu Dongyu.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, World Bee Day celebrates the diversity of bees and beekeeping systems and promotes actions that will protect and enhance the pollinators and their habitats, improve their abundance and biodiversity, support the sustainable development of the beekeeping. Today's event will highlight the diversity of bees and the products and the services they provide, and will discuss the strengths and challenges bees and the pollinators face, and the crucial role of beekeeping for the agrifood systems. Beekeeping is a widespread global activities with millions of beekeepers, including indigenous people, depending on bees for their livelihood and well-being. They provide diverse ecosystem services such as pollination and environmental monitoring, raising more than 20,000 bee species that exist worldwide. However, bees, pollinators, many other insects are declining due to the unsustainable agricultural practices, pesticide, pests and pathogens, habitat destructions, and the climate crisis. We must act collectively to support, restore, and enhance the role of bees, pollinators, beekeeping. To address these challenges, together with partners, support the members to promote and implement sustainable beekeeping and pollinator-friendly practices, such as the promotion of integrated pest management practice and biocontrol to reduce the exposure of pollinators to harmful pesticides. While we have achieved some success and progress, a lot remains to halt the ongoing loss of bees and pollinators, and to safeguard the ecosystem services that provide that contribute to food security for all. Later this year at the COP15 of the Convention on Biological Diversity, we have the opportunity to adopt an inclusive post-2020 global biodiversity framework to halt and reverse biodiversity loss. We need to protect the bees and the livelihoods and the systems that support for better production, better nutrition, better environment, better life for all, leaving no one behind. I thank you.
Thank you, Director General. By observing World Bee Day, we can raise awareness on the essential role bees and other pollinators play in food production, livelihoods, and the preservation of biodiversity. At this year's World Bee Day event, we will be celebrating the diversity of bees and beekeeping systems. As we've heard from the FAO Director General, bees are fundamental to the biodiversity that sustains our food systems through the products and services they provide. The theme of World Bee Day 2022 is also closely linked to the theme of this year's International Biodiversity Day that will be celebrated on 22 May. This day will focus on biodiversity as the foundation upon which we can build back better. We are very pleased to have Mr. David Cooper with us today, Deputy Executive Secretary at the Secretariat of the Convention on Biological Diversity. Mr. Cooper will deliver a few opening remarks. David, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Kim, Anna, and good day to all. It's a privilege to join the Director General and to join all of you in opening this World Bee Day celebration. We also celebrate on May the 22nd, the International Day of Biodiversity, with the theme of building a shared future for all life on Earth. And as you just noted, these two days are very much linked. Thanks to the leadership of FAO, World Bee Day has become established as an important event to raise awareness of the vital role of bees and other pollinators in supporting people and sustaining ecosystems. And in fact, learning about bees and about other pollinators is a great way of understanding the richness and importance of biodiversity and what it means for our lives and for all life on Earth. Bees and pollinators show us the importance of diversity. We know that we depend on bees and other pollinators for many of our foods, our most nutritious foods, in fact. But what's also important is the diversity of these bees and pollinators. There are over 20,000 species of bees alone, and many other insects, as well as birds, bats, and other animals that are important pollinators. We know that food production is more stable and is higher when we have more diversity. And bees and pollinators also teach us about the importance of interactions between parts of biodiversity, between pollinators and the plants they pollinate, but also with other parts of the ecosystem, such as the nesting plants. They provide us a really good introduction to the web of life. And they show us that we depend on nature for our well-being, and also that we have a responsibility to protect them, to protect nature for ourselves and for all life on Earth. The International Initiative for the Conservation and Sustainable Use of Pollinators, developed under the Convention and implemented by FAO, aims to engage all actors in the conservation and sustainable use of all pollinators. But currently, we, humanity, are not doing enough to protect nature. We know that the ongoing loss of biodiversity is in fact threatening our own well-being. In fact, at the first part of COP15 in Kunming in October last year, ministers recognized the loss of biodiversity alongside climate change and other problems, pollution, as an existential threat. They recognized that urgent and integrated action is needed for transformative change across all sectors of the economy and all parts of society. As was mentioned by the Director General, governments are currently negotiating the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, a framework for all to address this crisis. There will be further important negotiations next month in Nairobi, and then later this year in Kunming, China. Governments and all parts of civil society will come together to finalize and adopt this important plan. It will address all the drivers of biodiversity loss: land use change, climate change, invasive species, pollution. It will need to address also the indirect drivers of biodiversity loss, our investment patterns, our consumption patterns. We will need to find a better way of sharing limited resources among the people on the planet. All of this will require an approach across the whole of government and the whole of society. Everyone will need to be involved: governments, businesses, local governments, civil society, farmers, gardeners, beekeepers, everyone. I wish you happy World Bee Day, happy International Day for Biodiversity. Let's be engaged and build a shared future for all. I thank you.
Thank you so very much, David, and also thank you for reiterating the importance of bee diversity and our responsibility to protect it. So exactly 1 year ago, FAO formalized a very special partnership with Apimondia, the International Federation of Beekeepers Association, through the signing of a Memorandum of Understanding. Jeff Pettis, president of Apimondia, will now tell us more about this partnership and Apimondia's work. Over to you, Jeff.
Hi, I'm Jeff Pettis, president of Apimondia, and I'm speaking to you on World Bee Day. And I want to say a few words about our cooperation with FAO. And I'm pleased to be in Italy, although I'm not in Rome at the moment. I'm on the beautiful island of Pantelleria, south of Sicily. And we're here to look at ways to conserve the local subspecies of Apis. So it is bee related, but unfortunately I couldn't be in Rome. And I'm recording this because our internet here is a little unstable, if you will. So I'd just like to say greetings to all the beekeepers around the globe. Greetings to FAO in Rome, and proud to be with you. And again, this is World Bee Day. Why do we celebrate World Bee Day? Well, it's because bees bring a lot of wonderful things into our lives, food, but they also, if you're a beekeeper, they bring joy, they bring honey, they bring beeswax. So, yeah. Our work with FAO, Apimondia's work with FAO, started more officially when we signed an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, just a year ago. And we're delighted to be working on at least 15 different projects or items with FAO, promoting bees and beekeeping around the globe. And I'll just touch on a few of those. We're working with Codex about honey standards and talking about the purity of honey and what is true honey, because there's an issue of honey fraud globally. We have a letter of agreement to host 4 biodiversity workshops where pollinators are highlighted and the role that pollinators play in good food production practices around the globe. And we'll hold those in Asia, Africa, North Africa, and Latin America. And those will be coming up this year. We also have another LOA, a letter of agreement with FAO on DATIS, which is an information gathering platform where we're going to look at trying to document the types of bees and beekeeping around the globe. And we'll use 2 key areas to test this data system for beekeeping, and that is Asia and Africa. So we look forward to that work. We continue to do work with TECA on bringing information about beekeeping to small farm holders and farmers. We work on data collection with FAO, training of different types with beekeepers. We've got some surveys going on that we're working closely with FAO on. So green jobs, a number of things, sustainable beekeeping practices and promoting beekeeping as a way of working with indigenous populations around the globe. So we as Apimondia are glad to be part of this World Bee Day celebration. If you're a beekeeper, you know the joy that bees can bring to you. If you're the common person just tuning in, what is World Bee Day all about? Well, it's about celebrating bees, but in a sense, it's about all pollinators. We're focused on honeybees in particular, because that's the most common managed pollinator. But it's a celebration that all pollinators enrich our lives. And so if you keep bees, I wish you the best in your beekeeping. And if you don't, I hope you can appreciate the good things that bees bring into our lives, the fruits, nuts, and vegetables that we enjoy in our diet. So from World Bee Day here in the Mediterranean, I wish you a good conference, and go out and find a way to celebrate World Bee Day wherever you are around the globe. And thank you to FAO for hosting this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jeff, and also, well, thank you for this insight in terms of the collaboration between FAO and Apimondia, and also for reminding us that in celebrating World Bee Day, we are celebrating all the wonderful things bees and pollinators are bringing to our lives. So as we've heard from today's interventions, bees and beekeeping are key to food and agriculture. FAO is committed to protecting bees and other pollinators, and is engaging more and more into this area of work. However, FAO is not the only UN entity that is working in this field. We now have the pleasure to show you a short video produced by the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, better known as UNESCO, on their UNESCO Guerlain Women for Bees program.
Pollinators connect humans with nature. All of us depend on pollination for our survival. Carrying pollen from one place to another, bees are symbols for the web of life. Vital for the world's food security, and for most terrestrial ecosystems, pollinators such as bees, flies, butterflies, or bats are also essential to produce our medicines, biofuels, and materials. Bees inspire art, technology, and spirituality, including in many indigenous and local knowledge systems. Despite their importance, pollinators and pollination are at risk. UNESCO partners with Guerlain in the Women for Bees program to empower women beekeepers within the World Network of Biosphere Reserves by valorizing the links between culture, biodiversity, and pollination in beekeeping practices. The program supports women to overcome social and cultural barriers that prevent them from participating in beekeeping. Anchoring many livelihoods around the world, beekeeping has the potential to offer decent income opportunities to many people, especially women. Implementing IB-based recommendations and inspired by FAO's good practices in beekeeping, the Women for Bees program contributes to fostering sustainable beekeeping, building capacity for women and local communities, and increasing information flow and cooperation among beekeepers, farmers, and other stakeholders in biosphere reserves. Training for women beekeepers is taking place all around the world. In the Women for Bees program, cultural and biological diversity are interwoven. The diversity of beekeeping knowledge and practices using native bees contributes to their conservation, just as the diversity of bees supports pollination, food security, and livelihoods. We are part of nature.
It's about life.
It's about life.
Thank you, UNESCO, for sharing this initiative with us that so very clearly demonstrates the many opportunities beekeeping can offer to many people and women in particular. So let us now begin our virtual journey around the world together with our technical speakers. Before we continue, please allow me to remind all those who are tuning in through Zoom that you can ask questions in the Q&A box. Our experts will attempt to answer as many of your questions as possible as we are heading towards the event's Q&A session. And now it's my pleasure to give the floor to Zahira Nejraoui, founder and president of the Beekeepers Association of the United Arab Emirates. Zahira is a construction program manager who is passionate about beekeeping. In 2017, she founded the first and only Beekeepers Association in the United Arab Emirates. As part of her duties, Zahira manages several educational apiaries, conducts numerous beekeeping workshops, courses, and lectures, and is involved in beekeeping research studies. She participated in several beekeeping congresses and exhibitions inside and outside the United Arab Emirates, and was featured in national and international newspapers and magazines. Dear Zahira, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I wish you a very happy World Bee Day. Thank you very much, Kim Ann, for that beautiful introduction, very flattering. So yes, my name is Zahira Nejraoui, and I'm the president of the Beekeepers Association here in the United Arab Emirates. I am very honored and proud to be invited to this beautiful lecture today and share with you an interesting facet of beekeeping in the UAE around Apis florea, which is a wild bee that in my eyes is fascinating and I'm really fond of. So we will start in this presentation by taking you through the characteristics of Apis florea. Then we will speak about Apis florea in urban settings, and this is based on my personal experience. Then I'll take you to Apis florea in rural settings and how the local beekeepers attempt to manage this bee. And finally, I'll share with you the initiatives that exist surrounding this bee in the UAE. So, something that often comes up, if not all the time, when I say that I'm a beekeeper in Dubai is, are there bees in the desert? What do they eat? Is there enough flowers or trees? Well, you'd be really surprised to see how rich the local fauna and the local flora are. Here are some examples of bees that you may encounter if you ever visit the UAE. So zebra bees, or otherwise called desert bees, you'll find them deep in the desert. Leafcutter bees, Carpenter bees, which all are wild solitary bees. And in terms of social bees, you'll find Apis mellifera yemenitica, which is native to the Gulf region. And one of the most prominent, if not the most prominent wild bee here in the UAE, Apis florea, which is also called Asian or Arabian red dwarf honeybee due to its tiny size and its typical red abdomen. But Apis florea is not native to the UAE. It's in fact originating from Asia and is reported to have reached the eastern coast of Africa. So let's have a look at the characteristics of Apis florea compared to its cousin Mellifera. Both are from the Apis family. In other words, both are honeybees. Both are social bees, meaning they live in a colony with one queen, workers, drones. Now, Mellifera can be managed and kept in a beehive. Florea, however, lives in a feral life, and despite its multiple, most creative attempts to keep it in a box, including my failed attempts, so far, I don't believe anyone has ever succeeded. Another point is that Mellifera produces excess honey, and that's the reason why they're used for beekeeping. Florea, on the other hand, lives in a single open-air comb and only produces enough honey for its own survival. You can see here on the right a photo of a typical honeycomb from Florea. So on top is the only honey stores that they have, they produce, and below is the nursery. The last difference I'd like to highlight, which is the most noticeable one, is the tiny size of Florea. People most often mistake it for a fly if they don't look closely. I'd like to add also that Florea is very prone to swarming. They typically do not stay in one place for too long, a few weeks or months at most, very rarely years. Well, as I was saying, Apis florea lives a feral life and swarms a lot, and often ends up in Dubai residents' gardens, garages, carports, etc. So before the association was created, the only alternative the residents had was to call pest control companies, and which would come and exterminate the bees and charge you for it in addition. If you recall also earlier, I mentioned that Florea cannot be kept in beehives and produce only a very little quantity of honey. Therefore, the beekeepers were not interested in collecting those colonies. So once the Dubai residents became aware of the existence of the association, we kind of became the removals, which I prefer to call swarm relocation. Instead of, so basically we saw that as an opportunity who volunteered to perform these relocations. And you can see here one of our members volunteer in action. So this exercise allowed us to capture a wealth of precious information and data on Florea's behavior. And we could also extract some trends. So for example, depending on where those calls came from, we could see what are the preferred neighborhoods and areas, which means what are the type of vegetations that they were attracted to. We could also see that there were peaks of emails and calls that we received. So that indicated to us that it could be swarm seasons. In general, we received about an average of 5 emails or calls per day. So that gives you a rough idea of the spread of Florea in Dubai. We have also developed a technique specific to removing the swarm from Florea. So instead of just taking the bees themselves, we take the full comb and try to keep as much as possible the integrity of that comb. So we will place it in a box, in a sealed box, and move it to a remote, safe, most importantly, shaded place. We slightly open the box, just enough to let the bees in and out and not predators to come in. And after a few days, when the babies have all hatched, the bees then consume all their honey and take off to their chosen spot. They would not stay on that box, in that box. Here below are some data that we have extracted. And if you look at the little smiley on the table, this is how we measured our success rate, meaning by how many customers we have managed to convince to keep the bees as opposed to removing them. So this is where education and raising awareness takes all its meaning. I'll let you admire the challenges that Florea like to tease us with. Some configurations were really tricky, and we needed to show a lot of creativity and agility to have them removed. So now, in contrast with the urban areas where Florea may be viewed as a pest, in rural areas it's most sought after. In the northern Emirates, which are mountainous areas, we find honey hunters, or what we call here cave hunters. Most often, Florea and sometimes, but very rarely, mellifera would nest in caves where temperature are obviously cooler. Cave hunters have developed a technique to keep the bees in the cave. So after removing the honey stores on top, they would bind the nursery to a stick and place it back into the cave. Have a look at this quick video that illustrates what I'm talking about. Cutting the nursery, placing it in a stick, putting it back in the cave, and extracting the honey. Something to be, I believe that that could be a really good research opportunity to study this technique and assess its success rate. So I'd like to highlight something, is that the honey hunters have reported a clear bee decline, a clear florea decline over the past 10 years. And we, on the other hand, in the cities have noticed an increase of florea. So my personal take on this is that it may be due to the fast urbanization of Dubai, which can seem contradictory, right? But you need to understand that in the cities over here, it is very heavily landscaped. The streets, the parks, the residential areas, the commercial areas, lots of plants, whether imported or native flora. And this provides florea with a viable food source. While in the rural area, florea might be overhunted. So effectively, florea might find it more appealing to stay in cities. The local population is very fond of florea's honey. It is a holy honey. Honey is very holy, and bees are very holy in Muslim culture and religion. So here are some photos of how it is sold in local markets or honey festivals. This honey is quite pricey, and given its rarity and purity, and ranges between $150 to $200. So what are the initiatives surrounding florea? Well, there are still a lot of questions that remain surrounding florea. When did it migrate to the UAE? What are the reasons for their spontaneous swarming? What's their reproduction rate? And particularly of interest to us as an association, what is its impact on the local bee population, both wild and managed? Unfortunately, there is very little research in the UAE and worldwide regarding florea. But these last couple of years, a research center in the Emirate of Fujairah sparked a particular interest on florea and initiated some very, very interesting research projects. So here's a brief summary of the topics tackled by Fujairah Research Center on Apis florea. First, the development of technology to fix florea swarms in the same place. Second, development of the pheromones to attract swarms of Apis florea to predetermined locations. And third, the study of the pollens contained in florea honey to determine what type of flowers florea are attracted to.
Sorry, I'm very sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to make you aware of the time. So there's approximately, if you could round up. Sorry about this. Thank you.
I am done. Thank you so much for that. There's so much to say, so little time. So yeah, I was saying that some very positive results started to show, and hopefully in a year from now, we can share with you the findings of their research. So stay tuned. Finally, I will just leave you with a dilemma that keeps buzzing in my head since I became involved with florea, which is, would you rather control the propagation of a non-native bee species because it may have adverse effect on the local biodiversity, or on the contrary, protect this non-native bee species because it acts as a major pollinator and secure livelihoods? So let me know your thoughts and let's discuss it in the hive, or else feel free to contact us directly. Well, thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed this lecture and have a great day.
Many thanks, Zahira, for joining us today and also for having taken us on a beekeeping journey in the arid parts of the globe. Pollinators are very important to biodiversity and indigenous peoples' food systems. Therefore, in 2011, TIP, the Indigenous Partnership for Agrobiodiversity and Food Sovereignty, set up a pollinators network, bringing together a variety of organizations and programs, including the Ojek People's Development Program in Kenya. The next presentation will be given by Daniel Kobai, who is part of the Indigenous Peoples Pollinators Network and the founder and executive director of the Ojek People's Development Program. Bees and honey are very important for the livelihoods of the Ojek people, as they are for most other hunter-gathering communities around the world. During the questions and answers session, Daniel will be supported by Alexander Robert Leo, a longtime partner of TIP, who has been advising numerous indigenous peoples groups in pollination and honey collection. He has worked for many years with the Keystone Foundation in India and has 28 years of professional experience in beekeeping, related research, and the implementation of sustainable and hygienic forest honey collection practices. He is currently the leading supporter of TIP's Indigenous Peoples Pollinators Network. Dear Daniel, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Yes. First, happy World Bee Day. I'm speaking on behalf of the Indigenous Peoples Pollinators Network, and I'm based here in Kenya. And thanks for the introduction. I think for us, for Ogier community, issues about bees or everything else, it is about lifestyle.
Excuse me, Daniel, to interrupt. I'm very sorry. Would it be possible to put your presentation in presentation mode? Yeah, it's perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm speaking on behalf of, and thanks also for hearing my colleague David Cooper, because we are working together on other issues on biodiversity. And so my work today, and thanks because I'm not really an expert in terms of science, but I'm an expert because I was brought up as an indigenous person. And also I've been brought up as part and parcel of bees. So it was not that I learned, but I grew with the bees. So it became very easy for me, but a lot of scientific. I think my brother Leo will be able to answer some of your questions. Indigenous Ogier peoples are found in Kenya, and you can see the green part of that map where that is where the Ogier community are, especially in Mau Forest Complex. And as we practice beekeeping system, Abies Bolivera and Abies all these are races, and they all prefer hives to these introduced blank hives, because all we have seen is currently is that most of our bees like the long, despite there is new top bar hives in Kenya. But our interest as indigenous communities or Ogier community is that we have seen that long hives are handcrafted from specific trees, and they are raised up on the top of trees. And for the Ogier people, honey is important for food, nutrition, medicine, livelihood, and cultural practice. Some of us, I can tell you, some of us can prepare very nice honey wine. So this is part of something you will be of interest to many people, because we enjoy, because this is part and parcel of us. So it's for cultural practices and many others. As a community, we have, of course, there are many challenges, but we introduce bees as part of competitive for nectar and pollen resources. And also, they say that introduced bee species are competitive for nectar, pollen resources, and spread diseases. But what I can say is that, sorry for that. Sorry for that. There are other challenges we have is about logging, and then the issue of reforestation scheme, land flowering species. That is the other part. The schemes often destroy foraging activities of bees, and therefore local bees honey production is decreasing. So as Ogier peoples in Mau, we have a lot of things which are going on, but of course the challenges, some of them are related to issues of land and deforestation, and these are made it very hard. But it's not only for the Ogier community. We have other communities across the world, including the Cassis and their local bees. The Cassis of Meghalaya, I think you can see the red part of that, are local hives to collect honey and wax. You can see one of my brothers from India collecting some of them. The spread of broom grass and cash crops and the introduction to exotic species, that is Abies mellifera ligustica, affect the pollination in fallow areas and the production of honey for household. So you could see this, the issue of honey and indigenous peoples is across the globe. And of course, most of them do not sometimes commercialize it, but it works better for them. We have also our brothers from Karen of northern Thailand. You can see the red part where the people are. The Karen people practice long hive beekeeping using specific tree species and the use of fallow lands of their rotation agriculture for beekeeping and protect forest. So in this case, most of the communities use honeybees are important for pollination. But of course, many people sometimes don't really understand that honey are important for pollination. So there is a lot of issues of rotational agriculture and development of wild edibles, that is wild fruits and the rest. Honey production and pollinator diversity, the local stingless bees, which many people in the world do not really have a lot of knowledge about the stingless bees, which has a lot of very medicinal value. And most of us in our gay community use it for children, for a lot of things, because it's, of course, the amount of honey produced by stingless bees may be less than the other bees, but they are very medicinal. About 12 species are observed in Hindu Kush, Himalayas, and region of South Asia, in Northeast India, Peninsula India, and northern Thailand. Of course, in Kenya, most of the people found that they are unable to know or really protect and preserve the stingless bees. It is something we are trying to see how to go about it, because the honey is has a lot of cultural value. They have a lot of social issues, and it is very, very, very important. You can see diversity in local rock bees, and for us, you could find them in the hollow trees, but of course, the one rock bees are also common in some areas, even in Kenya and other parts of the world. And this kind of Abies florera, which my sister from UAE really mentioned about it, are migratory in nature and are excellent pollinators of cultivated and wild crops and fruits. This is used all over, and more than 60% of the honey comes from this traditional wild honey in the rocky, the rock bees. So overall challenges, of course, spread of industrial agriculture, especially issues of use of a lot of spraying of land and crops. This has become a great threat to the pollinators. Loss of biodiversity, which is a big issue globally. No wonder the CBD is really trying a lot to do about it and affecting indigenous bees. And of course, loss of ancestral lands and territories among indigenous peoples have affected the issue of bees. Way forward to nature and based food system, celebrate indigenous people's food system and the role of bees in them. Connect honeyworks, pollen, and other bee products to livelihood, and have a lot of innovations to support the bees. And then encourage organic certificate of honey through participatory guarantee system. So these are systems which must be there, because sometimes among indigenous peoples, people always ask you, is your honey certified? Is it clean? Is it, so all this must be taken into. And then defend ancestral and collective rights of indigenous peoples and pollinators network across the globe, and influence indigenous youths. I think the issue of youths, to introduce them to issues of bees and pollinators, is something which must be taken to be able to really give a very strong future for the sake of bees. So conclusion, without local bees, but that will be really a big challenge. So asante sana. Thank you very much, and God bless you, and happy Bee Day.
Many, many thanks, Daniel and Asante Sana, for highlighting the importance of beekeeping for the livelihoods of indigenous peoples, and for drawing attention to the challenges of protecting local bees and local beekeeping practices. So next, I'm delighted to introduce Lucy King. Lucy is a zoologist and the head of the Human-Elephant Coexistence Program for the Kenya-based research charity Save the Elephant. She's a member of IUCN's African Elephant Specialist Group and a research associate at the University of Oxford. She has been publishing her research on the use of honeybees as a natural deterrent for crop-raiding elephants since 2006. Lucy has won the UNCMS Thesis Award, the St. Andrews Prize for the Environment, and the Future for Nature Award for her work. Her TED Woman talk was listed in the top 10 TED Walks for 2020, reaching 2.4 million people. Lucy, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And it's really wonderful to be here today. Thank you. I hope you can see my screen. Is that okay? Can everyone see that? Great. Okay. Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here and to tell you about my project, Beehive Fences, an innovative use of African honeybees to save African elephants. And you may be wondering how we've managed to sneak elephants into World Bee Day. Well, it's a very special project that we're running under the Save the Elephants umbrella. It's called the Elephants and Bees Project. And I'm also representing the African Elephant Specialist Group of IUCN and Oxford University Department of Zoology. And really the crux of this, just to give you a quick background of why elephants and bees are so important, well, we're really seeing an increase in human-elephant conflict across the continent of Africa. And we're all looking for really innovative ways of how to solve this challenge. And this conflict is really being caused by land fragmentation, increasing development, and an increase in human population. So although elephant poaching is starting to come under control in large areas of Africa, East and Southern Africa really has started to control the elephant poaching. We're starting to see a recovery of some of those elephant populations, and now an increase is happening in human-elephant conflict. And it's really communities living at the lower end of the economic scale that are being badly affected by human-elephant conflict. And so the damage is disproportionately significant on those household finances. And some of these pictures here are examples of the types of conflict that people are living through at the household level. Elephants walking straight through villages, knocking over water tanks, clashing with communities at drinking holes, goats and cattle. They're knocking into houses, pulling roofs off to reach water and food stored inside. And of course, a lot of crop damage is the most common cause of conflict, either crushing crops or ripping crops up to eat them. So these are the real things we're living with day to day here in Kenya and across large areas of the elephant range across Africa. So we took a really scientific approach to exploring a local folklore in Kenya that elephants were scared of bees and that they wouldn't forage on trees that had beehives in. So talking to local communities and really listening to indigenous stories, we heard that as elephants were breaking down branches to feed on, they were breaking open wild bee swarms, and those bee swarms were stinging the elephants in the face, in the eyes, in the mouth, and up the trunk, which is not very pleasant. And my research studied the behavior of elephants hearing bee sounds, and we're talking about Apis mellifera scutellata, the African savanna bee. And elephants would flee from these sounds. As they fled, they would head shake and dust and vocalize to others as they retreated. And we really think from stories that communities told us that they were fearing the thousands of bee stings. As we know, African bees can give off a pheromone as they sting that can trigger the others to attack. So this research was really fundamental in our design of a beehive fence to use this knowledge of African elephant behavior in response to African bees. So the beehive fence is a very simple design. It is built around 1 to 3 acre farms in Africa on the very front line of human-elephant conflict. And the beehive is hung between 2 posts, often with a shade roof, either with thatched roof or with a piece of plywood, or you can use any real roofing technology. And the hives are interconnected with a piece of plain wire, which you can just see there on the screen. And they connect one beehive to the other around the farm. So if an elephant tries to approach the farm, they will hit that wire and try to push through into the farm and trigger the beehives to shift. So here's a demonstration of an illustration of how the beehive fence works. So one beehive is hung between 2 posts, which are 3 meters apart. Then there's a gap of 7 meters, and then there's another beehive or a dummy beehive in between. That dummy beehive is actually a piece of plywood that we cut up and place in between the beehives. So it stretches the hives out, and it means that we only need 20 beehives for 1 hectare of land, or 12 beehives for 1 acre of land. So it is a realistic number of beehives to protect a piece of farmland. And that piece of wire is connecting one to the other to the other. If an elephant tries to approach, like this image, the bees get disturbed, swarm out, and disturb the elephant, and the elephant runs away. We're also using beehives to protect trees, and we find that 1 beehive hung on either side of a tree. And in South Africa, we're trying it with marula trees, with elephants alive, our project's down there. And these beehives are proving to be up to about 95% effective at stopping the tree being disastrously damaged by elephants. So these are ideal for iconic trees that we don't want to lose. So we're really focusing on the human side of the beehive fences. So a lot of how to maintain the beehive fences, how to keep the farmers optimal, how to create autonomy within the beehive fences. So we're building a lot of capacity, and we've taken on some professional beekeepers to really improve our bee husbandry. And here we're using Langstroth hives, but you can use any type of beehive in a beehive fence. We've started to use Langstroth because they fit really well in a beehive fence, and we put 1 super box on the top, and they will sit very well. We have used Kenyan top bar hives and log beehives. They're all fabulous hives. We're just finding the Langstroth is working really well for honey production for this type of design. And ultimately, the output is elephant-friendly honey, which is a new name that we've given to this honey. It's raising a lot of awareness for our project. In Savo, the honey is very organic because there's no pesticide use in our farms, and we're making sure that we're really processing it professionally and trying to get it sold. It's a very important output. At the moment, we're trying to engage more women beekeepers. We find this a very important stage of our project. It's taken us a while to really engage more women. We're supporting women's groups. This is a grass seed bank that a beehive fence has been put in around. And this process of engaging women beekeepers has been helped by our chief beekeeping trainer, who is a woman, Lois and Jerry. And so we've got lots of tactics for trying to increase our occupations, because we have a lot of beehives now. In Savo, we have 51 beehive fences with over 650 beehives. So we're trying to increase occupation, which is becoming more challenging in light of climate change. And some of our tactics are putting up catcher boxes. We're putting them into baobab trees. We're planting sunflowers, which are ideal crop because elephants also don't eat sunflowers. And we're doing queen rearing in our apiary, including putting honey badger cages over the top of the beehives so that we don't have honey badger attacks in places where we're trying to keep elephants out. So we've got a lot of challenges, and these are things we'd love to hear some stories about. We're certainly seeing massive changes in rainfall. Either we've got too little, we've got too much rain, or it's very erratic. We've got eruptions of pests and parasites, which are changing with different rainfall patterns. We do need a lot of constant support for our farmers to self-manage the hives, and we're really trying to work on this aspect with better training. There's quite a lot of equipment repair and placement costs that we're trying to work out how to make the beehive fences as efficient as possible, and engaging women in beekeeping has been challenging. There is plenty of demand for our honey, but we're not producing enough. So hence the tactics to try and increase occupation. And there are some cost implications in improving the fence design. We're trying not to use cement, for example, or metal posts because it's just too expensive. We're trying to keep the cost of the fence low. And our absconding rates do remain high. So we're finding that we need more research on African honeybees, particularly absconding behavior and what's triggering absconding. And we're finding there's not many manuals and information on African bees in African languages. There's quite a few now in English, but we really would like some more in Swahili and other languages that would be more helpful for our farmers in the field. So despite all of these challenges, we have managed to spread this concept to now 22 countries around Africa and Asia, around 84 sites. And we, just as an example here of a beautiful photo from a camera trap of a beehive fence on the slopes in Ngorongoro crater in Tanzania, which is with our partner Wild Survivors. And they've got a fantastic women's group that's now engaging with the beehive fence, keeping elephants out of their farms, and of course, engaging them in honey production. The project has expanded to Asia using Asian bees. We've seen less effectiveness in the use of Asian bees. Apis cerana indica is less aggressive than the African bee, but some good results from Thailand where they've used the European bee in beehive fences where they're fairly aggressive. So there's lots of research still needed to be done, and we'd be very interested to hear from any of you who would like to try beehive fences. And we can, of course, share more experiences of how it's worked in different locations and different climatic experiences on our website as all of the different information and manuals that you can download for free. And we'd be really happy to keep in touch with you. So thank you so much for giving me a chance to just showcase our work and to how we're using bees to save elephants, David and Goliath, and we really hope that this is inspiring people to use bees in a very applied way. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Lucy, for this quite unusual presentation. While we know that bees sustain livelihoods in many ways, I'm not sure how many of us were familiar with the practice to manage bees to protect small-scale farmers from elephants, but also to save elephants. So now it's my pleasure to introduce Cristiano Menezes. Cristiano is a biologist and entomologist with extensive expertise on the biology and management of stingless bees. He currently works as a researcher at the Brazilian Agricultural Research Corporation, also known as Embrapa. Cristiano's research focus lies on colony multiplication technologies and the use of these technologies to enhance crop pollination services. He is also involved in the development and implementation of public policies for bee conservation and the sustainable growth of meliponiculture, or stingless beekeeping. Cristiano, welcome. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me for this beautiful conference. It's a great pleasure. And today I will speak a little bit about the Brazilian stingless bees and how we are developing their management. So stingless bees are a group of bees that lost their ability to sting a long time ago, millions and millions of years ago. And after that, they developed their own techniques to defend themselves. So before you ask, how did we remove their sting? We didn't. Actually, they lost it along their evolution. But it doesn't mean that they don't have a defense. Most species use their strong and sharp mandibles to bite their enemies, and it can be actually very annoying. And some unusual defensive systems, for example, Oxytrigona bees that can...
Excuse me, Cristiano, to interrupt. I do apologize. I think your presentation is not in presentation mode.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry to you.
Let me try again. Is that working now?
It is. Perfect. Thank you. Please proceed.
Yeah. So the stingless bees developed their own defensive systems. One, for example, the Oxytrigona group, they spit acid that can burn our skin. And some of them are so shy and so tiny that they pretend to be dead when their nests are opened. So each species developed their own mechanisms, but they are very gentle in general and can be easily managed. They occur in all the tropical and subtropical area of the globe. We have about 550 species around the globe. And in Brazil, we have almost half of this biodiversity. So we have many species to work with and a great variety of behaviors, possibilities to manage them. All of them are eusocial, which means that they live in organized societies, generally with a single queen and thousands, sometimes hundreds or thousands of workers. Some nests may be smaller with a few dozen bees, but other species can build huge nests with many, many thousand bees. And they produce propolis, honey, pollen, wax, and many other products that can be used by humans. Luckily, we have around 60 species in Brazil that can be managed in a good scale, and we don't need to go to the field anymore to acquire new hives for this activity. So our beekeeping is actually very sustainable because we can split the nest and increase the activity without harming the natural populations. So for about 60 species, we are already independent of the native stocks. The most important product, of course, is the honey, and the stingless bee honey is generally more liquid and often a bit sour because of natural fermentation. So stingless bees, they use their fermentation based on their own microorganisms, beneficial organisms that are secreting substance in the honey to protect it from spoilage. So this is one of the key interesting things about the stingless bee honey, that it is naturally fermented and can be adding new substance, new beneficial substance to this honey, like antibiotics and natural conservation systems in this honey. And each species will have its own microbiome, which means that it is different from each other. And in the end, we will have many different flavors. We have some honeys that are very sweet and delicate. Others are more sour, sometimes acid like vinegar. And others sometimes have different odors, sometimes different smells, like one species in Brazil that produces a salty honey with smells like cheese. Another key difference in stingless bee honey is that it's not stored in wax combs, pure wax combs like honeybees, as you see on the right. They are stored in barrels made of wax and propolis. And this contact with the propolis will add new substance and new characteristics for this honey. And as it ages inside the colony, it will change the aromas and will change the characteristics and will give identity. So we can notice through the taste which bee produced each honey. We are able to detect it with our own tongue. So this is something unique and amazing about stingless bee honey. Moreover, we can manage these bees for pollination. So many crops can benefit from their management, like strawberry. As you can see in the picture, when we use these tiny bees, the Jataí bees, we can increase the size of the strawberry. We can add different possibilities. We can increase even the shelf life of strawberries when they are well pollinated by these bees. So this is becoming each day more used in Brazil. We are also using stingless bees together with honeybees in coffee pollination. And the first thing the farmers ask is, how can I now control the pests of my crop without killing the bees that I am just renting or buying? So the bees stimulate farmers to use less pesticides, or when they need to use, they stimulate the farmers to use it more carefully, applying during periods where the bees are not present in the crops, or using bee-friendly products like biological control to control the pests. They also stimulate people to take care of their natural areas around the crop, because bees are not coming only from the managed areas, but also from the surrounding. This is something that we observed in the acai berry in Amazonia. So we are studying where the pollination of the acai come from, and we are using managed colonies, but we saw that management of bees do not solve all the pollination problems. We actually need the wild bees from the forests around the crops to have enough pollination, and especially diversity of pollination. So it means it is stimulating people in Amazonia not only to manage hives, but also to protect the natural areas around the crop. We are also using bees to teach children about the importance of biodiversity and the importance of conservation. And because they don't sting, we can open the nest, they can try the honey, they can manage the bees, see their colony organization, and in the end, they take to home a trap nest to try to get their own hive and have their own bee at home. And this is actually increasing a lot in Brazil. People that are having bees at home as pets. So this guy that you are seeing in the picture, Fernando, he keeps around 40 hives in the balcony of his apartment in the center of São Paulo city, in the 15th floor of his building. So they are engaged in these activities. And nowadays, it's not only something weird, but actually it's becoming a big business. People are investing a lot in new designs of hives that are pretty and you can put in your garden. And as you can see here in the picture, my 2-year-old daughter is managing the hive without any danger. And actually nowadays, the hard part is to keep her away from the hives because she wants to harvest the honey every day. So it's something very nice to have the bees in our house with our children, and we can produce our own honey. And we have some species of bees that are very happy in the cities. Actually, they naturally live in big cities like São Paulo. Bees are also becoming very famous in Brazil. We are taking them to many important TV programs, and they are interested in these issues, in these subjects. And many people are now getting more familiar with the stingless bees, something that most people didn't know. Nowadays, we are being able to take to many people, millions and millions of people in Brazil, and it's becoming a big boom, the activity of breeding these bees. We are producing a lot of online materials to stimulate people and to train them, to help them to have the beginning information. And in the beginning of the pandemic, we launched a course, online course about stingless beekeeping, and we had over 45,000 people watching and doing this course, and together with other materials that we are developing and producing with curiosities, techniques that people can reach and start their own breeding. Stingless beekeeping, which we can also call as meliponiculture, it has a promising future in the tropics because we can generate incomes to these local people and also protect the forests, because we need protected forests to have good harvest, to have good honey. So when we buy a pot of stingless bee honey, we are not paying for this delicious food that is fantastic, but we are also contributing to the people who are actually conserving the nature. So this is the key message that I would like to bring today. I thank you, the organizing, again, for inviting me. It was a great pleasure to share a little bit of our work in Brazil.
Thank you so much, Cristiano, also for this insight into the highly diverse beekeeping world of stingless bees, and also for stressing the need to take care of the environment around crops to maintain this diversity. And now I wish to really heartfully thank all the speakers before we move to our questions and answers session with them. Please allow me to remind you that you can keep on posting your questions in the Q&A box, and we will try to address as many questions as possible. You will also have the chance to continue chatting with the speakers directly after the event in the Hive, but more about that later. So we've been looking at the different questions, and if I may, I would like to address, there was a question from Ms. Nadia Brick for Zaira. So Zaira, I will just address the first question to you, if that's okay. And the question is as follows. Hello, Ms. Zaira.
Hello.
Will the Apis florea have an impact on the Apis mellifera population in terms of competition and genetics, especially as the Apis florea is approaching more and more the Mediterranean?
Well, this is a question that still we don't have an answer to, right? This is still an open question, and I am looking for partners, universities, research centers to start looking into this impact. You know, what is the impact of florea on the local biodiversity? Is it whether positive or negative? You know, so at the moment it is an open question, and hopefully soon there will be some studies that tackle this question.
Thank you, Zaire, and also thank you for highlighting that this is an interesting area of research that's still to be further explored. So the next question that I have on my screen is from, and I do apologize if I pronounced the name wrongly, it's from Tina Gull, and it's addressed to Daniel and Leo. And the question is the following. Which agricultural crops do bees help most through cross-pollination? And how can we introduce this type of beekeeping to farmers? So I'm not sure who will be responding to the question. Will that be you, Daniel, or Leo?
I will be responding. I am Leo.
Thank you. Welcome, Leo.
Yeah, basically for bee pollination, the crop, the cucumbers, all these, bottle gourd, snake gourd, pumpkin, those cucurbit family is extremely useful because, the shape, color, seed setting, everything on the basis of the pollination. If there is deficient pollination, the fruit size may be odd, uneven sizes. Then the second crops would be all vegetables like tomatoes, brinjal, tree tomatoes, chilies, all kinds of vegetables which are short in time. Then the third one is all the citrus crops. Citrus means lime, oranges, grapes, those kind of, these three areas of cultivation which will be benefited by bee pollination importantly. Finally, where you find the stingless beekeeping is possible, mango is an excellent tasty fruits from tropical. The mango crop is extremely well pollinated by the stingless bees.
Thank you so much, Leo. And this was very helpful. The next question I have is for Jeff. And Jeff, Mauro Mirabile would like to know whether you could explain more about the impact of varroa mites and other parasites on beekeeping. Jeff, I'm not sure whether you are there. Otherwise, I will proceed with a question from Lucy. I understand that Jeff is not there. Jeff has left us. He already warned us that he had some connection problems. So if we'll then proceed. So Lucy, I have a question for you from Marius Molinier. So I'll read it out. And he asked, well, first he says, using bees seems a good idea to keep elephants away. But elephants are very active at night when bees are sleeping. Isn't there a risk that crops will be destroyed by elephants at night?
Thank you for the question. And yes, in fact, 90% of the crop grades are at night. We very rarely have elephants dare to come into the communities in the day. So all of our research and all of our data is from nighttime. I suppose the earliest crop grades would be about 5:30, 6 o'clock in the evening when bees are still active. But yes, so all of our data is from nighttime, and the beehive fences have proven to be over 80% effective at keeping elephants out when 90% of the data is at nighttime. And we really feel like what the reason is, the beehive fences are buzzing. You can hear the bees in the hives. They're not totally asleep. They do rest, but there's a lot of activity at night. There's lots of cleaning of the hive. If you shake the hive, they wake up very fast. Bees will come out in a full moon. There's quite a few lights around some of the farms as well. Farmers often have torches if elephants are around. And when the bees do come out at night, they will swarm to the nearest hot item, which is often a human, if you're in a bee suit, or an elephant. And you can imagine having a swarm of bees sort of, tangle themselves around an elephant at night. It would be really horrific. And so, of course, it only needs to happen once or twice. And those elephants will never forget it because they have the most incredible memory. So that's one of the reasons it's working for elephants, is they only need 1 or 2 negative experiences being stung by bees. And that negative conditioning, they will literally never forget. So they just won't go near that farm again or that beehive again. So it's really critical that the beehives are full of bees and they remain active. And we also mostly are working in tropical areas where it's not super cold at night. We don't have hibernation of our bees. So they're typically not as dormant as some of the European bees, which might be more dozy at nighttime or in winter. So yeah, it's a very good question, but we're very thrilled that almost all our data is from nighttime crop grading. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucy, for these additional insights. So then we have a question specifically addressed to Cristiano. It's a very funny question, it's a very nice question from Alexis de la Cuesta. Cristiano, Alexis asked whether you could explain how 40 colonies of stingless bees can survive on the 15th floor.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's actually a big discussion nowadays, if living so high is good for them or not. So if it's a place where the wind is too strong, then they can have problems. So it was surprising for us that they could be well at this place. But specifically with this person, he reports for us that he can even produce honey there with the species that are used to the urban environment. So they fly around, these small bees, they fly around 600 meters away from their hives. So going up and down this 15th floor doesn't seem too bad for them. But the important tip is, if you notice that your colony is getting weaker, is maybe because the area where she is not as good, or maybe it's too high for them. So choose the right species for these conditions.
Thank you very much, Cristiano, for having responded to this question. We have a few minutes left, and I would just like to throw in a question for any panelist to answer. So if you feel really if you feel like you're up to answering this question, please just let me know. And so the question is, do you have any first-hand research or practical experience about the impact of climate change on the various bees and beekeeping systems that you've just talked about? So I will repeat that question, and if any panelists would like to respond, please raise your hand. So the question is, do you have any first-hand research or practical experience about the impact of climate change on the various bees and beekeeping systems you've just talked about? Lucy, I think, Lucy, you raised your hand. It's a bit difficult to see with, with the yellow background, but I think, yeah, that's a hand. Lucy, please.
Thank you. I feel very passionately about this subject. We're living climate change at the moment in Kenya. My main study site is next to Tsavo National Park, which is a semi-arid park in southern Kenya. And we've seen the most unbelievably erratic rainfall. You might be seeing in the news at the moment that we have a severe drought in Kenya, including a really bad drought in the north. We're seeing a lot of death of elephants and livestock. And we have been recording the activity of our beehives during the last 10 years in this study zone. And we've really noticed a devastation on our hive colonies over the droughts. So the number of droughts are increasing. But what we're also noticing is an increase in pests and parasites in our hives as the rains come back. So we're seeing a kind of an eruption in our system. So we thought we were studying elephants and bees, and now we seem to be studying the decline of the bee in our area. And I think we're going to continue studying our beehives as this kind of long-term data set to see how changes are happening. And it really does emphasize the importance of long-term research projects and long-term data collections, and they're very expensive to carry on. And it's very expensive to keep recording data from every hive in every situation, but we've just got to do it because bees are a canary for our world of what's going on. And of course, it's more important than saving elephants in terms of the beehive. Our whole food production is based around bees. And if we're losing bees at the rate that we are seeing in Tsavo, it makes me very worried for the rest of Kenya, and we're not sure what's happening in the rest of Africa. So I think it's a really important area that we need more research and more funding into, to really explore the impact of this changing climate. It's not just lack of rain in some places, it's too much rain in other places, and it's just a change in the climatic systems. So yeah, it's a huge area we need more research in.
Thank you very much, Lucy, for this very concrete example on the impact of climate change and the importance also to focus our research on this area. So with this, I would like to really thank our expert panelists for their time and also their active engagement in today's discussion. I think it has been very lively and stimulating. And again, if you have further questions, please do join us in the hive after the event. And so now we are, to conclude, I would like to invite FAO Deputy Director General Maria Elena Semedo to give her closing remarks. Deputy Director General, we're very happy to have you with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, friends. It's really a great pleasure for me to be together with you to celebrate the World Bee Day 2022 under the theme Be Engaged, celebrating the diversity of bees and beekeeping systems. And as it has been mentioned, is very close to the theme of the International Day of Biological Diversity 2022. We are part of the solution. Indeed, listening to you and the different intervention, I would say yes, bees are part of the solution. You may remember that the World Bee Day was established following Slovenia's proposal to the United Nations after 3 years of intense negotiation. And I recall very well, the first observers 5 years ago, and I'm pleased to see this important day celebrating bees and beekeeping is getting more and more popular. If you see around the world on all the newspaper, all the countries, they are celebrating the World Bee Day. And today's speaker gave us a great insight into the impressive variety of bee species, beekeeping practices, systems, product and service. And I must say, I was connected since the beginning and I learned a lot. And I hope all of you had enjoyed the discussion and the presentation. We heard about the rich experience in local bees and beekeeping from indigenous people. We travel around the world and learn about dwarf honeybees in arid zones and the giant honeybees in the Himalayan region. We discover that stingless bees in the tropics are kept as pets and that the defensive behavior of African bees can benefit both people and elephants. It was an amazing presentation. And indeed, bees are amazing creatures. And through pollination, they provide a service that is vital to life on our planet. Beekeeping practices in very diverse countries and regions provide us with food and other valuable products and support the livelihoods of millions of small-scale producers. Bees and beekeeping unite us all. But for bees to thrive, beekeepers, farmers, policymakers, and other stakeholders must act responsibly to protect bees, other pollinators, biodiversity, and the environment. Following your presentation, I can conclude saying that we cannot live without bees. We must all play our role and be engaged. I would like to conclude by thanking our partner, Apimondia, the International Federation of Beekeepers Association, our inspiring speakers, all of you engaged in the preparation of this celebration, and all our participants. Thank you again for being here with us. Happy International World Bee Day, and continue the celebration throughout the day and the weekend, and wish you a very good weekend. Thank you. Over to you, moderator.
Thank you very, very much, Deputy Director General Semedo. And with this, these closing remarks, after these closing remarks, I wish to thank all of you for joining us today. I think we've had a very interesting and lively event, and also a fun event where there were many new, heard about many new things about beekeeping. So I would just like to allow you allow me to remind you that this webinar has been recorded. So if you would like to download the recordings or re-watch any of the interventions, I would like to invite you to go to the FAO webcast page by following the link available in the chat box. With this, I wish to also especially thank all of you that behind the scenes and screens for making this event happen. And also with a special thanks to the interpreters, because these events are very challenging to to interpret. If you want to continue to discuss with other participants, or if you have any other burning questions for any of the speakers, please join us in the Hive, a virtual platform that has been made available for this purpose. And details on how to get there are now being added to the chat box and shown on screen. I do wish to remind you that this platform only works on laptops and desktops and not on mobile devices. Other than that, the platform is pretty self-explanatory. Thanks again to all of you, and stay and be safe.